Crypto isn't too strong recently, but one meme coin is doing quite well, and that's Ponke on the Solana chain. Let's have a look at some on-chain data. Let's have a look at some data most people aren't considering to try to find out how much longer this rally could potentially last. We are currently at 46.5 cents, up by 10% today alone, and this week we increased by more than 33%. And that's all happening while Bitcoin isn't doing much, and even Solana didn't react too much to the Solana ETF rumors. Now, this is not the first video on Ponke on this channel. I published one 1.5 months ago, and the video actually outperformed your average video on this channel. At the time, the price was at 36 cents. Again, now we are at 46 cents. If this is your first time hearing about Ponke, maybe consider following channels like this. I try to publish videos earlier and I publish videos regularly as well. Now, here's why we should care about Ponke in the first place. When we look at the tokens on the Solana chain and we order them by their liquidity pool size, as in how much capital is actually locked up in that particular token on Solana, then Ponke is at number 7. It's the 7th largest token on Solana. It might not have a massive market cap, it's only 250 million, but for on-chain trading, it's really relevant. And so here's what's so interesting about this recent rally in the last 24 hours. The number of buyers did not exceed the number of sellers. It's both exactly 1,187 wallets. So when the price is still going up, that means that the purchase amount that the buyers put in was larger on average than the seller amount. And that is very much noteworthy, given that the price tended to trend upwards, right? The people that bought back in May, they made more than a 2x. So those kind of sellers should on average be selling more in US dollars now. But it appears like the larger wallets tend to now get in. Let's look at that kind of data in a bit more detail. I've built a tool for Solana tokens where you can have a look at the buyers and sellers and the returning sellers and the new buyers, etc. Let's have a look at all of this. So the tool is available to the premium members. Feel free to check it out. It's down below. It's thebitcoinstrader.com. You can plug in any Solana token into this tool. And what we see here is that actually the number of recurring traders tended to exceed the number of first-time traders in the last month. This is not necessarily that great, especially with meme coins. We want to see an expanding investor base. But as you've already discovered, it's not the number of traders, it's not a big wave of retail investors that are getting in, it's simply the larger wallets. It appears that those larger wallets tend to make a lot of smaller transactions though. The number of transactions peaked yesterday. So today hasn't yet finished, it's just a few hours after midnight UTC. But in the last 24 hours, there were more transactions than usual on chain. And so let's segregate by wallet size. Let's look at the whales, at large retail, and at medium-sized retail. Small retail is all the wallets that have less than $1,000 worth of the token. Medium-sized retail is the wallets that have between 1,000 and 10,000. Large retail is between 10,000 and 100,000, and whales is above 100,000. Now we don't see any real long-term trend, but we do see quite a bit of a peak of medium-sized retail that happened yesterday. We see something similar on the 29th and on the 24th and 23rd. And so this is when Ponke tended to outperform again, right? The 23rd, the 24th is where a lot of medium-sized retail bought in. Small retail didn't really do too many transactions. And so that's then when we tend to see the outperformance. I believe this is in general a pretty strong effect. Usually when the smart money gets in, as in when the larger wallets get in, right? The larger wallets tend to make the smarter calls. The more you trade, the more accumulates. This is an effect I believe is relatively consistent within crypto. There is smart wallets and there's not so smart wallets. The larger wallets tend to be smarter, as in they've traded more, capital tended to accrue towards those wallets, so they're larger. So in general, when large wallets buy, that's a very important sign. Now here's a bit of a problem. Ponke is resisting a general crypto downtrend. Ponke is pretty much the needle in the haystack, right? Most altcoins are doing poorly. Ponke is outperforming, and the question is really how much longer can this outperformance last? The on-chain data for Ponke looks alright, but I personally prefer to rather bet on falling prices now. And here's why. The on-chain data for Ponke looks quite okay, but I prefer to bet on falling prices now. Not of Ponke, but of altcoins in general, because I believe most altcoins tend to underperform Bitcoin most of the time. Have a look at this. This is the others dominance since beginning of the year. So this is all the altcoins that are not in the top 10 as a fraction of all of crypto. So at the beginning of the year, roughly 13 to 14% was in those not top cryptocurrencies. That now went down to 10.4%. The relevancy of those smaller altcoins shrunk by more than 20%. So despite the meme coin trading frenzy on Solana this year, altcoins in general didn't do too well. And I believe even the meme coins aren't going to do too well. Ponke might be doing all right, but meme coins as a whole, as a category, might not. Check this out. This is another chart since beginning of the year. This is the stablecoin market cap, which tended to increase up until April of this year. Since April of this year, we don't see any more fiat currency flowing into crypto. It's pretty much just flat. And that means crypto becomes even more player versus player. If the market as a whole is expanding, then it's existing players versus new players that come in. When no new players are coming in, then it's existing player versus existing player. It gets way rougher. And so here's what I personally do. I simply bet on falling prices of assets like this one. This particular asset went down by more than 60% this year, very consistently, right? With very little volatility. And that's what I believe is the real alpha maker right now. Why try to pick the needle in the haystack when you can bet on the haystack on average going down? I know it's not a very popular approach, but I personally bet on falling prices now. I look at various altcoins that tend to have bad tokenomics, that tend to have an expanding supply, but where demand doesn't keep up. And then I bet on those altcoins, relatively speaking at least, to underperform. Altcoin trading is for expanding crypto markets. Currently, the market, I believe, is not expanding. What I think is better is to simply bet on falling prices when it's player versus player, because again, returns are very much concentrated in a few winners. It's a winner takes most market. And when the winner takes most, why not at least get the odds in our favor and not try to pick those few winners, rather bet on the losers continuing to lose. So I made a dedicated tutorial on that. It's 42 minutes in length in Premium. Feel free to check it out. Premium is also where I share what kind of asset this is and where you can actually short this, where you can make money from this continuing to fall. But if your crypto portfolio isn't yet large enough to justify Premium, there's also a free Telegram group. The link is as well down below. Looking very much forward to chatting with you in Telegram as well. Cheers.